These are the new metal releases for August 30th, 2024. I have 5 albums to talk about. I'm going to be talking about the new Wintersun because you're all waiting for that. And I got some other stuff. I got some black metal, some melodic black metal, some progressive metal, some death metal, and other stuff. So let's get into this. First album I have is Time 2 by Wintersun. Now you probably know the story behind this. The band released Time 1 back in 2012, and then they started a crowdfunding campaign with their fans to make a second one, and it kept getting delayed, so people wondered if they would ever release the album or if it was this big scam. Well, it came out this weekend, and I'll be honest with you all, this was my first time listening to this band. I still haven't even listened to the first one. The band is listed as symphonic melodic death metal in the Metal Archives. To me, they sounded more like a power metal band, something along the lines of Blind Guardian, but with a lot of experimentation, like different instruments, there's Asian music, and some other genres, such as black metal. So I thought it sounded very big and epic, but at the same time, I thought it was very loud and dense. There were times I could not really get into the melody, and other times when I thought the drums sounded like a very fast beat played on a loop. Now, usually when an album takes a long time to come out, it's made over the course of a few years, and the final product is not that great. I thought of the album Chinese Democracy, like with Guns N' Roses, like it took so long to come out, but it just wasn't that great. Now, this album has 6 songs, and 3 songs are over 10 minutes long. So, for example, on the second song, The Way of the Fire, it starts with acoustic guitars that sound like some folk rock, maybe something like Jethro Tull, but then they go into what sounds like a mix of black metal and power metal with a very fast drum beat and lots of orchestration. The vocals sounded like black metal to me. Then at about 3 minutes into the song, you can hear some melodic guitar playing and something like you would hear on a solo album by one of those guitar virtuosos like Steve Vai or Joe Satriani. Then it sounds like power metal, and basically the sound is all over the place. So by the end of the song, it sounds like some softer Japanese music or something of that nature. But it's just one song, and you get the idea. Now, the album has a lot of variation on it. So for me, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It may be a grower because it's a very complex album, but for me, I'm going to keep it at that score.
Empty faces in a whirlpool, removing pity.
So the next album I have is Leprous with Melodies of Atonement. I was able to listen to this a few times because I had a promo of it. And to be honest with you all, I didn't like it at first for the first 2 times, but then by the 3rd listen, I started to get into it, and I think it's pretty good. And I actually really like it now. I'm new to this band, and this was the first time I had ever listened to this band. And there's something about the name Leprous. Like, I thought I was going to hear like some kind of black metal band. It just had that name to it. But they're actually a Norwegian progressive metal band, and they've been around for a while. I think this is their 8th full-length album. Now, my first impression was that it sounded kind of like Sleep Token. It had that modern pop, almost R&B type of sound mixed with some metal. There were times when I was listening to it and it kind of reminded me of like Billie Eilish. But like if she played metal songs, and that's kind of what I got from it. But like I said, I didn't like it on the first listen, but by the 3rd listen, I started to get into it. So let's talk about it a little more. Now, the opening track, Silently Walking Alone, is pretty good. The vocals reminded me of the band Sleep Token, but it had some interesting electronic sounds and some guitars, and there were parts of it that sounded almost like industrial music. So I thought that was a pretty good song. Then the 3rd track was called My Spectre. This one started off very soft and atmospheric, but it slowly built up with lots of emotion and vocals. But then they come in with some big riffs and vocals, and the song has lots of peaks and valleys. There were some other good songs. So, for example, the song Limbo had this haunting quality and it reminded me of the band Korn when they played those like quieter parts. Then there's some other stuff. There was a song Faceless, and it had an acoustic bass and choir singing, and another song called Self-Satisfied Lullaby. And this is really where they show off their progressive side. They have complex instrumentation, and overall, this one grew on me a lot. So I'm going to give this one an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a really good album. It's not a super heavy album. It's laid back, but it's just one of those albums that you're going to listen to like lying on your bed, put on your headphones, and just kind of chill out and just take everything in. It's that type of album, so check it out. Next one I have is Amiensus with Reclamation Part 2. This is a progressive black metal band from Spokane, Washington. And it's the second part, and I actually didn't get a chance to listen to the first part. It came out in April. Now, if you know me, I'm not really big into black metal, but it's the type of band I could get into because they were similar to some of the black metal bands, which I do like, which were both Agalloch and Enslaved. So they had a sound similar to that. And I was at a promo of this because I was able to listen to it beforehand, and otherwise I probably wouldn't have really paid much attention to it. So let's talk about it. The opening track is called Solfario. I don't know what that word means, but it's a good song. Hard to kind of put into a category. Some of the guitar riffs are more like traditional heavy metal, and they use both the harsh black metal vocals and clean vocals. The lyrics appear to be somewhat philosophical, talking about God, energy, and space, and I guess probably tied into what the song title means. There are also some heavy parts with some traditional black metal sounds with the tremolo picking and the guitar riffs and the blast beats, and then the guitar solo sounded more like traditional heavy metal in the songs. Then there's a short instrumental called Disconsolate, and it has acoustic guitars and different stringed instruments. It was very soft and atmospheric. And this went into a song called Decaying God Child. This was more epic in nature, lots of big guitars, and this one sounded a lot more like it was maybe like black metal, but there were also like melodic leads and chugging guitars. So overall, another one of my favorites of the week. I'm going to give this one just a strong 8 out of 10. So it could go up, but for now, it's pretty cool. If you like bands like Enslaved, that type of black metal, Agalloch, definitely check it out. Next is Deceased with Children of the Morgue, a band listed as death, thrash, and heavy metal. They're from Virginia. They've been around a long time, and they say they formed in 1985, and their first album came out in 1991. But I've never actually heard of this band, so it's my first time listening to them, and it's pretty good. It's the type of music that I listen to. But they also have a very dark sound, and I think that makes this band unique. The only negative I have about the album is that it felt a little long. It's 55 minutes long, but on the plus side, they have like these short instrumentals between the songs, so that's pretty fun. So they open with an instrumental called Destination Morgue, and then it goes into the first main song called Children of the Morgue. And it reminded me of some early Slayer. I think that's a good comparison. It had the dark vocals, heavy thrash style guitar riffs, and I like the short instrumentals on this album because I think they really work. So there's another instrumental called Turn to Wither. It has slow and heavy riffs mixed with clean guitars. Then it goes to a song called Terranaut, which has some bright guitars and intense drumming. And they also have longer and more epic sounding songs, like the 8-minute plus song called The Gravedigger, which has some slower and heavier guitars. And this was just another good album. I thought it had a sound closer to thrash, but they still had elements of death metal and heavy metal in the sound. It's also very melodic, and there are also some songs with the female vocals, and that kind of gives it more of this horror movie type of sound. So I'm going to give this one another 8 out of 10. I think it's just one of those underrated bands that doesn't get a lot of attention, so they are pretty cool. So I have one more album to talk about, and that is Thunderbird, Divine with Little Wars. So another album I had a promo of. They're not really a metal band, but I'll call them more of stoner rock or proto-metal, but they're still worthy of a review. So the band is from Philadelphia. They're influenced by bands like Hawkwind and Monster Magnet. They're fairly new on this. They formed in 2017. The album has 9 songs. It's 39 minutes long. So the opening track is called The Pony Express. And this sounds like old music from the West, like something you would hear in like a Clint Eastwood, like spaghetti western type of movie. It's a short instrumental. It opens the album, and then it goes into Times Gone Bad. This has some of those psychedelic keyboards that sound like Iron Butterfly and some of those thick guitar riffs. I'm thinking of bands like Caius or Fu Manchu, and then they incorporate harsh vocals and these haunting, like Tony Iommi style guitar riffs. So basically, if you like that old 70s proto-metal style, you'll like this band. So they have another song called Black Rhino Mantra, and this one has some creepy church organs. Kind of reminded me of the band Ghost, but as you know, Ghost is more of a modern band, but they sound retro to begin with. Another song called These Eyes, which has some bigger and beefier Black Sabbath style guitar riffs. And then Cerebral Tides had lots of heavy riffs, psychedelic sounds, and some eerie church organs. I think those church organs like really make this album like stand out. I really like that. And towards the end of the album is Old Black Crow, which seems to have more of like a bluegrass sound. Seems like they're playing like a banjo or an old piano. And that last song was an instrumental, and it's very trippy. Kind of sounded like the Doors as well. So kind of like a pleasant surprise as well. So I'm going to give this one another 8 out of 10. I think it's one of those albums that will grow on me after a few more listens. It's very experimental, but it is pretty cool. So that is all. Check out last week's episode for more short album metal reviews or whatever that means. Thanks for watching. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe. If you have not already, I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. I'll see you in the next one.